2 or 3 days ago, I was talking with one of my friends. We were talking in Spanish. In this case, we were talking Dominican Spanish, if you want to be more specific. And he came up with this sentence, which I'm gonna break down for you today. I've been teaching Spanish for a couple of years, and I find this sentence to be very interesting, especially if you are into learning Dominican Spanish. Um, I'm gonna pronounce this sentence a little bit slow because I don't want you guys to say, "Oh yeah, Dominican Spanish is so fast. Dominicans always speak fast." So the sentence is, "Ese tigre está aficiado con esa jeva." All right. So we're gonna break this sentence down today. Let's translate this sentence. So, ese tigre está aficiado con esa jeva. It just means that dude is obsessed with that girl. And there are some words here specifically, or some specific words that make this sentence to sound very Dominican. All right. So the word tigre, which is translated to dude in this case, the word jeva, which means girl, and there are some other ones like ta, and then oficial. Then everything else on this sentence is regular, neutral, standard Spanish. All right. And obviously, we can come up with other variations of the same sentence. People might use a different preposition. For example, here, so we have a different preposition where instead of saying ese tigre está aficiado con esa jeva, we would say ese tigre está aficiado de esa jeva. So that's just a different variation in which we are not using like a whole different sentence to convey the same message, but we are using a different preposition, which if we translate it to English, it would sound off. All right. Literally, it would sound off if we would translate it to English. But that doesn't sound phonetically wrong in Spanish. That actually sounds like flawless Dominican Spanish. All right, and this is where things get very, very, but very interesting. All right, what about if we were to translate this Dominican sentence, which is ese tigre está aficiado con esa jeva, to like a standard, regular, neutral Spanish. All right, so then in neutral Spanish, the same sentence, or you trying to convey the same message, you would sound, ese tipo está obsesionado con esa chica. All right, so if we're using neutral Spanish, something that you notice is like the sentence is longer, okay? Meaning that this sentence might sound faster because it has less letters. But at the end, it's just neutral Spanish, okay? It's not Dominican Spanish, and I guess that's where we gain the fame of, oh, you guys speak so fast, and probably we are just cutting letters on what you hear, and you think that is fast. But anyway, so that's not the purpose of this video. So I wanted to show you something more interesting on this video. So let's go word by word. All right, so in this case, tigre becomes tipo, ta becomes está, which is a neutral and a standard form, aka the correct form. And in this case, jeva becomes chica. All right, and I was rephrasing the same sentence earlier with a different preposition, so the same could happen in standard Spanish. We could say ese tipo está obsesionado de esa chica. Okay, it sounds a little bit off, but I don't know. So probably in Spanish, in Dominican Spanish grammar, it sounds way better. in a standard Spanish, it sounds okay. Um, but you might probably go with the preposition the preposition con, um, just to make it sound a little more appealing for the ear, more phonetically correct. Anyway, now if you notice, I skipped. All right, so I didn't mention the word aficial y obsesionado, and that's one point that I wanted to make. Sometimes, um, when we are speaking Dominican Spanish, we are using different words, but that doesn't mean that those words are slangs, all right? So they're probably a short version of an actual word that already exists, and we're just making a different word choice to convey the same message. And I'm saying that because the word aficial, all right, becomes obsesionado. That's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. Because if you go on the streets and probably you talk with a Dominican Spanish speakers, they wouldn't um they wouldn't think, all right? Or they wouldn't assume that they're using like a wrong word to say this, to say that someone is obsesionado, but that's the way it works specifically. So it's just like a word choice uh, situation where you rather use this word because it sounds more appealing to you, and that's how you say, and that's what happens sometimes with a Dominican Spanish too. It's like the word choice, you take to convey this message. So in obsesionado, aficiado, and anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Um, but for people who's probably learning Spanish, all right, what does the word aficiado mean? Let's see that. All right, so just FYI, the reason why I had chosen this sentence to teach you guys today is because that's the sentence that my friend used, and I found it to be funny and very interesting. How Dominican Spanish um, chooses, or Dominicans um, choose to use different words to convey the same message. Now, coming back to aficial, which that's where we're heading. So aficial in this case comes from the standard Spanish word asfixiado, where if you translate it into English, it'll be asphyxiated or suffocated in Dominican speech or pronunciation. So we sometimes cut the penultimate D in some words, which if you had done some research or if you have talked with some Dominicans already, so you have noticed that we cut some letters unconsciously, because that's something that I feel like um, Dominicans grew up with. Um, we just do it unconsciously, I guess. Cut some letters. That. Now, there are a lot of other sentence and examples that I would probably give you, but I don't want to make this video to be like 20 minutes or 15 minutes video. So we're gonna keep it short. If you want to practice those words right here, so just quick advice or reminder. So the word oficial has gender, meaning if you're referring to a boy, in this case it'll be oficial, and if you're referring to a girl, in this case it'll be oficial. If you want to drop off your own example here in the comments, just feel free to do so. And you're practicing, and actually, I don't know, maybe so put in the algorithm for this video to take off and have other people to learn something about Dominican Spanish. If you enjoy watch me rambling about Dominican Spanish and try to cover some of its nuances, Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll do everything possible um, because I know that Dominican Spanish it can be a little bit hard, and Dominican Spanish could make you cry. And I'm probably gonna be your friend who's gonna cover some of those nuances for you. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the comments.